All right, as we all know, election integrity became a hot-button issue following the 2020 presidential election. It prompted states like Georgia to secure their elections with new legislation, which sparked backlash from the left and the media. Efforts by Republicans to secure elections were twisted by Democrats and the media into what they call undermining democracy or an attack on voting rights. Well, the Heritage Foundation has given each state a score. They've unveiled their Election Integrity Scorecard, which assesses the status of each state's election fairness and security. Joining us now to break it all down, the brand new president of the Heritage Foundation, Dr. Kevin Roberts, along with the senior legal fellow and guru of election fraud and all things elections, Hans von Spakovsky, who is the manager of their election law reform initiative. Welcome to you both. Dr. Roberts, you're brand new there. We talked about this a couple weeks ago about your priorities. Why did the Heritage Foundation set out to do this, and what does it hope to gain by it?
Well, we set out to do this because for months, as you know so well, Sean, and thank you for your work on this issue, we as a movement, as a country, have been trying to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. And so what this report card does, what this scorecard does, is give Americans the unbiased information of election laws that exist in all 50 states. And so it leads us to what we want to happen with this. One of two things. Either those states that have election laws that could use some improvement need to see their legislatures convene and improve them, or, as is the case in a couple of the states that are in the top 10 or 20, where the laws are good, but there are still problems with elections, that is identifying a problem with enforcement. And so in either way, either by putting pressure on the legislature or pressure on election officers, we're hopeful that this product leads to even greater improvements in election integrity.
Hans, you are the go-to guy for this stuff. You are probably the expert on the right when it comes to election integrity, election fraud. So when we look at this scorecard that you put out, states in the red are some of the bluest states. New York is one of the worst. They want anybody to vote. Walk us through the methodology of how you guys came to deriving the color that every state got.
Well, look, we developed a methodology after talking to and consulting a lot of election experts and election officials, and we came up with 12 broad categories and 47 different criteria for judging whether a state had best practices on everything from how they manage the accuracy of their voter registration list to how they handle absentee ballots to whether they have basic security measures in place like voter ID. And then we analyzed the laws and regulations of every single state and compared them to the best practices. We assigned 100 points if they met all of the 47 criteria, and they wouldn't get points if they did something that didn't meet a criteria or did something that they shouldn't be doing, like putting in same-day voter registration. And then like I said, it's very objective, very nonpartisan, and no state scored perfectly, Sean. No state got 100 points.
Right.
The highest state got in the low 80s, but definitely some states are at the top. It's states like Georgia, Texas, Florida, who actually did a lot on election reform this past year to improve their elections. And as you said, states like California and New York at the bottom of the list.
You know, Dr. Roberts, one of the things that's interesting is I love that you guys did this. It's so important to counter the messaging of the left and the media. But I think that's the bigger problem to some extent is the messaging. They want to say anything that doesn't allow people to vote 365, 7 days a week is somehow, undermining the integrity of our voting system, is an antithesis to democracy. How do we combat the messaging part?
Well, I'll have good news for you there, Sean. Not that we live and die by polls at the Heritage Foundation, but I can tell you since June, when those reckless Democrats in Texas abandoned their post in the legislature and came up here to Washington, D.C., the polls completely flipped on the left on this. Because what happened was organizations like Heritage, with help with friends like you in the media, although we don't have many, we were able to tell the truth. And Americans know the truth. And the truth is, it's common sense that you would have to show voter identification, a driver's license, in order to vote. And so it sounds a little simplistic to say it, but the last 6 months of working on this issue has proven it to be the case, that we need to use outlets like yours. We need to use platforms like Heritage to proclaim what we know Americans not only agree with, but also happens to be the truth. And that is, where we have seen improvements in election law, people have seen improved access. Most importantly, we're securing the ballot.
Absolutely. Look, I'm out of time, but I want to applaud Heritage for doing this. It was shocking to see Hawaii come in dead last on this list. It's states that I thought would, quote, do well, according to the left-wing media, didn't. And I applaud you for doing this, and everything we can do to get this out, we need to. Kudos to Heritage. Hans, Dr. Roberts, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Sure, thanks for having us.
Thanks for watching the Heritage Foundation's YouTube channel. With more than 500,000 members, we are the nation's largest conservative research and education institution. We believe the principles and ideas of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing. Please help us further our mission by subscribing to this channel and sharing our videos with your family and friends.